My name is Lillian. I remember that night clearly, the night when the truth shattered the illusions of a family dinner. The room was filled with the warm glow of candles and the sweet scent of roses I'd arranged, but I was the only one who knew we were sitting in the midst of a long-standing crime. My grandfather, Mr. Henry Thompson, an 82-year-old man who built a successful construction business from the ground up, stood at the head of the table. He tapped his fork against his wine glass, and the sound rang out, silencing the chatter. Before we cut the cake, he said warmly, looking at me, "I want to say something to my granddaughter." The room turned to me, with 14 pairs of eyes filled with expectation. Then he asked the question that had haunted me for so long, "How's that check treating you, sweetheart?" For a split second, the table chuckled, charmed by an old man's concern. But my mother's smile froze, and my sister, Vivian, quickly glanced between me and our mother. I took a deep breath, the calm that comes from the worst nights in the ER washing over me. "Funny you should ask, Grandpa," I said. I opened the folder in my lap and laid out 3 checks in the center of the table. Grandpa has been sending these $7,000 a month lately, for almost 4 years to help me through. I never saw a single dollar. My mother's chair scraped back, and she tried to regain control. "Lillian, this is not the time. You're confused. Let's not do this at your grandfather's." But I was unmoved. "Turn the check over," I said quietly. My grandfather, with a steady hand, picked up the nearest check and turned it over. There, in a looping, confident hand that was not mine, was my name, Lillian Thompson, deposited into an account that was not mine. The room went deathly still. My grandfather read the forged signature out loud, then the account number. He looked at Vivian and asked, "Vivian, is that your account number?" Vivian's face paled, and she said nothing. Her husband, Derek, who always boasted about his investment skills but was actually good at handling other people's money, stepped back from the table. Vivian exploded, "You jealous, miserable. You never spent a dime on yourself. The money was just sitting there. It would have rotted. We used it. We made something of it." My mother, in tears, reached for my grandfather's sleeve. "Daddy, I was going to pay it back. I was going to lose the house. What was I supposed to do?" I stayed calm and spoke softly. "Mom, you told me you don't steal from family, you only borrow. Show me the loan papers." She had none, of course. There was no agreement, no record of the money being returned. My grandfather, speaking as the second person robbed, said, "For 4 years, I thought my Lillian took my help and couldn't be bothered to call me. I thought she'd grown distant. I grieved that. I have a card in my wallet. I thought she wrote me." "You wrote it, didn't you, Margaret?" "Our family attorney, Mr. Carlton, who had been a guest all evening, then spoke up. I'd choose your next words carefully, all of you. Signing another person's name to take a negotiable instrument and writing letters in that person's name to obtain more can amount to forgery under state law and very possibly theft by deception. This should be handled properly starting now." I stood up and said, "I don't need an apology tonight. I've stopped needing those. What I need is the money returned and a report filed where it belongs. The flowers are paid for. I'll send you the bill for those, too." And with that, I walked out of the family dinner with my head held high. As I drove home that night, I thought it was finally over. But just past 11, my phone rang. It was my legal aid lawyer, Miss Olivia Reed. Her voice was solemn. "Lillian, I've been going through the rest of the accounting file with Mr. Samuel, the forensic accountant. The letters, there are more of them than you saw. Over the 4 years, someone wrote your grandfather a steady stream of notes in your name, thank yous, updates about your life that never happened, and requests. There's even one asking him to advance 6 months' worth of money at once for a nursing program you were never enrolled in." I closed my eyes, realizing that what I'd uncovered at the dinner was just the tip of the iceberg. It wasn't a one-time grab, it was a carefully managed operation. The checks alone could be seen as a family mess, but the letters showed intent. Let me take you back to how it all began. I was 32 years old, working 3 jobs. I was an ER nurse, pulling night shifts, taking on weekend agency work, and teaching a CNA class on the side. Even with all these jobs, I was still rationing gas money. I'd taken out student loans myself and paid them off without asking anyone for help. I'd built a wall around the word help so high that I couldn't bring myself to ask for it, even when I was drowning in debt. One night, after clocking out of the emergency room at 3 a.m., I sat in my car doing gas math. I had a quarter tank of gas and a CNA class to teach across town at 8. I ate cold noodles from a container on my dashboard, not feeling sorry for myself because I couldn't afford to waste energy on self-pity. 2 hours earlier, I'd worked on a 65-year-old man whose heart had stopped in a supermarket. My hands were steady throughout the resuscitation. People never understood that I was good at my job, but I just couldn't make ends meet in my own life. Then, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother, Margaret. Sunday dinner. Grandpa's coming. I read it twice, and a strange feeling tightened my stomach. Grandpa was the kindest man I knew, but something felt off. Sunday dinner was at my mother's house, the one my father, Mr. Robert Thompson, had built before he passed away when I was 25. I came straight from a shift, still in scrubs and smelling like hand sanitizer. Vivian arrived looking radiant, fresh from a trip to Bali, with a new designer bag on her shoulder that cost more than my monthly rent. Derek talked about his latest investment deals as if he was a financial genius. My mother looked me up and down and sighed, "You always have to make yourself look so hard done by." Grandpa walked in, still standing tall despite his age. He hugged me tightly and said, "You're taking such good care of yourself. It puts my mind at ease." I was confused. I was a woman who reheated cheap coffee to save money. Whatever was easing his mind, it wasn't my life. During the dinner, when Grandpa asked me about the check, I thought he was talking about my paycheck. But when he mentioned the card I'd supposedly sent him, I knew something was wrong. I hadn't sent him a card. Before I could say anything, my mother quickly pulled him away to show him pictures of Vivian's new pet. The next morning, I received an envelope from an accounting firm I'd never heard of. It stated that Mr. Henry Thompson had been making annual gifts to Lillian Thompson. The amount was staggering, $84,000 in the last year alone. I pulled up my bank statements on my phone and scrolled back 4 years, line by line. There were no such deposits. I called my mother that night and casually asked if Grandpa had ever sent me anything through her. She paused for a moment too long and then said, "What on earth are you talking about? You're working yourself stupid. Go to bed." I knew then that I'd been gaslighted. A week later, my mother asked me to help her clean out the spare room. While she was making coffee, I sat at her desk where her laptop was open to her checking account. I scrolled through the transactions and found $7,000 deposited on the first of every month, with a corresponding transfer to an account ending in the same 4 digits. I remembered that Vivian had given me a check with the same last 4 digits when we split the cost of Grandpa's Christmas gift. I took a photo of the screen with my phone. But I knew a photo wasn't proof. I needed more. I built a file with dates, amounts, the photo of the letter from the accounting firm, and the photo of my mother's statement. I knew I needed professional help, so I made an appointment with a free legal aid clinic. Ms. Olivia Reed listened to my story without judging me. She explained that if someone had signed my name on the back of the checks and deposited them into an account that wasn't mine, it was a forged endorsement. But I couldn't get the bank to produce the endorsement images, only the person who wrote the checks, my grandfather, or law enforcement could do that. 2 days later, my mother called and asked me to handle the flowers for Grandpa's 82nd birthday party. I knew this was my chance. Everyone who mattered would be in one room. I agreed, and in the family group chat, Vivian was already posting pictures of the venue, the catering, and the entertainment, all paid for with the money that was supposed to be mine. Before going around my mother, I gave her a chance. I visited her one night and gently asked if there was anything she wanted to tell me about Grandpa's money. She sat down her tea and said, "You don't steal from family, Lillian. You borrow." I asked when she would pay it back. She replied, "When I can. Your grandfather has more than he'll ever spend, and you've always been the strong one." Vivian needed it. The house needed it. I also learned that she had been writing letters to Grandpa in my name for years to keep him sending the money and to keep him grateful. This was a different kind of crime. Ms. Reed connected me with Mr. Samuel, a forensic accountant. He ran a lifestyle analysis and found that Vivian's event planning business had been in debt for 3 years, and my mother's house had been on the verge of foreclosure. The money flow lined up perfectly with the gifts from Grandpa. But I still needed the endorsement images. I had 4 weeks until the party. I called Grandpa's house several times, but my mother always answered and said he was busy. So, I wrote him a card and put it in his mailbox when her car wasn't in the driveway. 3 days later, an unknown number called. It was Grandpa. He was at his friend's house and had received my card. He sounded hurt and asked me why I wanted to see him without my mother. We met at a diner. I showed him a copy of a canceled check he'd written to me. He recognized his own writing and smiled briefly. Then I said, "Turn it over, Grandpa." On the back was my forged signature. He stared at it for a long time, and his thumb moved over the signature as if he could feel the wrongness. He pulled out a small card from his wallet, a thank you note he thought I'd written. The handwriting matched the forged signature. I told him I hadn't written it, and I'd never known about the money. Grandpa wanted to confront my mother that night, but I stopped him. I explained that if he did, she would cry and manipulate him into doubting what he saw. Instead, I asked him to authorize the bank to release the endorsement images for all 4 years of payments. He agreed. The request went out, and then came the waiting. I went back to work and acted normal. 10 days before the party, Miss Reed called and said the images had come back. It was worse than I thought. The checks were deposited into Vivian and Derek's joint account, and there were also letters written in my forged handwriting asking for more money. I had a choice. I could handle it quietly through a lawyer, but I knew my mother would rewrite the story. So, I decided to reveal the truth at the party. In the end, the forensic accounting showed that the total diverted money was around $278,000. A restitution agreement was reached, secured against my mother's house and what was left of Vivian's business. The criminal report moved forward with the forged letters as evidence. Derek was quick to cooperate once his name was on the line. Grandpa changed his arrangements, and the money now comes directly to me. He also set up a nursing scholarship in my father's name. I don't speak to my mother or Vivian directly anymore. It's not out of hatred, but because everything between us now goes through lawyers and restitution schedules. On my refrigerator, I taped a photocopy of a canceled check with the forged signature facing out. It's a reminder that protecting what is mine isn't revenge, it's the price I pay to finally live in peace. That's my story. 4 years of silence, 3 jobs, and 1 check turned over at the right table. If this story makes you think about a question you've been too polite to ask about money in your family, take that as a sign to ask it. And if someone you love needs to hear this, share it. Drop a comment and hit subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.